This shiur, B'ezrat Hashem, I'm going to speak about something that wasn't so simple that I would speak about this noseh, this conversation, for two reasons. The first reason why I was scared too is because it's something that's very personal. It's something that is very, very personal to me and to other people, but because I'm saying it and it's personal to me, I was scared. The second reason why I was scared to talk about this is, I have no problem saying this, but it may come off a little haughty in the middle of the shiur, but Hashem knows that every single word that I'm saying is just for the fact that if it can help another person with this issue, and if it seems that I'm saying something highly about myself, it's only to show the person that he has a chance to make something of himself, even going through this situation. And if somebody feels that I am being haughty, then I apologize in advance. But whoever really, whoever sees through it will realize that it's really coming from a good place, because people who deal with this know how difficult it is, and you always want to help the other person that's going through it. Now, the conversation why am I speaking about it is, those are the two reasons why not. The first reason is because I realize that most things that personal, many people have gone through, and Hashem puts you through these things so you can help others. And the second reason why is, like I said, if you want to feel that it's coming from the wrong place, I apologize ahead, but Baruch Hashem, I really feel that it's coming from the right place. The conversation I'm going to speak about right now today is something that I have, or had really, my whole life since I remember, called severe anxiety, which everybody knows the word anxiety, and everybody feels that they have anxiety, but people who have severe anxiety know that the anxiety that other people have is a joke. Severe anxiety is a real condition that people have to go see doctors for. Severe anxiety is something that's very, very uncomfortable, and many people from this don't leave their houses for years. As I will continue with my story and other people's stories that I know, it's something that I saw a statistic, only about 4 million people in America have it. So whoever thinks they have anxiety, they don't know what they're talking about. Because when you say you have anxiety, they say, oh, me too. Somebody who really has severe anxiety looks at the person and says, you have no idea what you're talking about. Severe anxiety is something that's incredibly difficult and something that can destroy your life. And let me start about my life story a little bit. I'm not coming to give my life story, because everybody's life story, they can write probably thousands of pages, but just to give a little bit of an idea of why I'd like to speak about my life. As far back as I can remember, in 3rd grade, I was in yeshiva, and my 3rd grade Rebbe started teaching us about Gehenna, about hell. I was 8 years old, 7 years old. I'm thinking to myself, 7, 8 years old, and he's teaching me about hell? This man crazy? For a year straight, I'll never forget this, I had anxiety attacks for a year straight at 7, 8 years old about going to Gehenna. A 7-year-old kid, he's not worried about playing, he's worried about Gehenna. This is what I was worried about for a year. I used to cry nightly for 3 hours a day. My mother had to be with me every night to put me to sleep. At 7 years old, because of anxiety, I was afraid of going to Gehenna. Okay. At 12 years old, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what anxiety is. You're 7 years old. What do you know? Okay. About 10, 11 years old, I went through very difficult things that many children go through. Think about what I'm saying, you'll understand. That year also, one of my friends in front of me just died. He just fell to the ground and died. That will never leave my mind. I went through a lot of traumatic things. And I guess the anxiety got worse because once you have it, and then it gets worse. And it was very, very, very difficult to deal with. But, okay. Years went on. 12th grade, I was in camp. I remember it was the middle of the halves. Camp is 2 months, and in between the 2 months, there's a 2-day break until the new kids to come, so you could go home or do. I remember I went to my sister's house, and I started talking to her and telling her I hate camp. And they didn't understand, because I loved camp the past few years. I'm 12 years old. I went to camp when I was 9, 10. I loved it. I said, something feels wrong. I don't know what it is, though. But I remembered it was that feeling that I had when I was 8 years old. That severe anxiety that takes over your whole, it's like a monster, and you don't know. And what year was it that it happened? That summer was the summer after things really happened to me, and this kid, these traumatic events. And again, I had no idea what it was, and I remember anytime somebody spoke Lashon Hara or somebody did an Avera in my bunk, I used to cry for hours. Same thing. I'll just cry about going to Gehenna, Hashem, I'm scared, I love you, all these things. Mamish had pure fear of Gehenna, like somebody who's 25 years old and his boss calls him in and says, you're doing a terrible job, that 1 second of, and he feels he's getting terrible fear, terrible anxiety. Then high school came, and of course, before every single test, I went through tremendous difficulties. Now, this may be the part where you say, but the truth is, the only thing that saved me from the test is that, thank God, Baruch Hashem, one thing is, I don't forget a thing. That's what saved me. Meaning, whatever I learn, I never forget. I always got 100 on the test, but who cares about a stupid 100 on a test when the first thing you do is, when the first hours before the test, you're shaking. And you don't even know why. You know this stuff. You know the material. You know you don't forget anything. And every test you get 100, but every test you're freaking out. Okay. Then high school passed. Again, this may come, but the Rosh Hashiva turns to my father and says one sentence. He says, your son's the next Gadol Ador. This is what a 7-year-old kid has to hear. That gives him a lot of happiness. Okay, very nice. When I was 17 years old, I already went through most of Shas, Rishonim, Achronim, everything on my fingertips, everything. I was giving shiur in my yeshiva. Everything was nice. All of a sudden, about 18, 19, started a different part of my life. And that part of my life, I grew up in New York. I ended up for 4 years in Manhattan, numbing myself for 4 years in nightclubs. And all I used to think about all day was nightclubs, models, and celebrities. All day. This is all I spoke about. I feel terrible because now I realize what I put my family through. All day I was talking to them about this stupidity. But Baruch Hashem, everything's for the best. So at those 4 years, I never had any anxiety. I numbed it. What's the difference if you're on drugs or you're on a drug of a high of going to nightclubs? It's all the same stupidity. It's all not dealing with life, and it's all just imaginations. What happened was, to make things short about how, what, when, but by the time I left New York, I already was friends with the biggest actors, and every night I knew all the models. I knew all the models. Everybody's seen the magazines, all the stupidity. And out of nowhere, Hashem sent me something this is not something I'm going to speak about because it's not Negeh, and Hashem brought me and swerved everything around, and I came to Eretz Yisrael because of some things that Hashem sent me, good signs, as you would say. I came to Eretz Yisrael. First place, about 4 years ago. 4 years ago. First 3 people I met in Israel, one of them is sitting right here. Tzvi. I think it was the third person. First was Yosef, which who knows where he is, and then it was you and Moshe walked in together, and you offered me tuna. I remember this like yesterday. Now, he came with his little suit pants. He was coming from his jog or a gym or working or something. Oh, that shirt, buddy. The point is, Baruch Hashem, we had some good times there, but I wasn't connecting. Why did I feel good in Breslov? Because I felt part of something, but I wasn't really connecting to the whole ideology. I wasn't connected to Hashem, nothing. Now this part is where things got really scary. Now, about 2 years ago, I started dating my wife. At that point in my life, I was going out with her. I knew I loved her. I knew she was for me, but I couldn't marry her. The torment and anxiety that I was going through, I was throwing up daily from anxiety, throwing up daily. I couldn't move my limbs because my whole body was racking in pain because of anxiety. It gives you physical. I was going through tremendous pain and suffering. They took me to doctors. Nothing was helping. Okay. I broke it off with my wife. I thought things would get better. I started going to the field, and I started doing Yisraelus and talking to Hashem. And that's when, boom, one night, I was with 2 friends in the field, and I had my first panic attack. Now, panic attacks, people think they're panic attacks, and they go, that's not a panic attack. A panic attack, a real panic attack that most people don't go through, is you actually cannot breathe. You cannot breathe. You need people to shake you it's like a seizure. It's almost like a seizure, and it started happening. Now, let me explain to you what happened over the next year and a half, till about half a year ago. Listen to this. I have no problem saying this on camera because the ending is Baruch Hashem beautiful, to be honest. I started asking the most deepest questions that, I don't even want to say these questions to scare people. But it started off really, why did Hashem create the world? What am I doing? Who am I? All these deep questions. Then started getting deeper. Then I started having dreams with these things. It was getting crazy. I went to Rav Arush and I told him, and the first thing he told me was, he said, when you make it out of this, you're going to be bigger than everybody. I said, what do you mean? He said, let me explain to you. He said, there was two brothers, Hevel and Cain. Hevel was much greater than Cain. But Cain had the ability to become 8 million times greater than Hevel. But he didn't use it out. He had all the tests, and he didn't pass it. If he passed it, Hevel would have been nothing compared to him. He said, now you have the chance to become Cain. So I started telling him, though, about things I'm going through and the questions. He said, listen, I only know maybe a few people that went through this. But whoever went through this became that. I said, you know what? That doesn't make me feel good. Because why? Let me explain to you. And some people over here may know, they were there a little bit of the time. I had for 6 months straight, every second of the day, I had the Yetzer Hara telling me to commit suicide. Can you imagine 6 months straight? Not that I wanted to, but I had anxiety. What is anxiety? Anxiety is, there's a good case. What's anxiety? A mother who loves her child. And she has a thought one time that she's going to throw her baby out of the window, because thoughts always go through you. But because she has anxiety and it's the last thing that she wants to do, all she thinks about is, oh my gosh, I'm going to throw my baby out the window. I want to. But she knows she doesn't want to. And then she starts answering it that I know I'm not going to because. And then she says maybe, and it just turns into a web. I sat all day wondering for 6 months, why am I not going to jump off a roof, even though I knew I wasn't. The next 6 months I started was, this is something that you guys will not be able to comprehend. I started having these deep questions in philosophy, and I went online like an idiot, and I started Googling things. And the Googling things, it took me first to philosophy, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because, as I will get to. I started Googling things, and Googling brought me to things about the Matrix and craziest things. The Matrix is, right, a movie that person doesn't real, and this is not real. I had panic attacks and anxiety attacks for 6 months because of this. All day, I was looking at people and touching people and wondering if they're real. The anxiety was killing me. It's not funny. You have no idea. It's worse than Gehenna. Rav Arush told me this is worse than Gehenna. Meanwhile, I went to a certain Rav, and I told him over my issues, and he turned to me and he said, I have a secret to tell you. Nobody knows this, but I'm telling you because of what you're going through. He said, I had such an incident that I didn't leave my house for 4 years straight. The people I knew told me, either you're going to die, you're going to commit suicide, or you're going to end up in a crazy house. And he became one of the biggest Breslov Rabbanim. I'm not going to say who. And he told me the same thing that's going to happen to you. That's what he told me. Now, then I started having questions. I'll explain to you some of the questions, but you can't imagine. I started asking questions. Why am I different than an animal? Why is an animal bent? And why am I up? Every single question. Why this? I started going into every single question that you can imagine. Any question that anybody has asked, or philosopher, I went through it. I went through every single religion. I started going through Islam. I started going through Christianity, Judaism, everything. I know everything on every religion. This is only a year and a half. Like I said, that's one thing I don't forget. So it was all bracha, because Rabbi Hashem knew that this is the only way I can make it through. If I don't forget a thing, and my mind goes endless. But it's a good thing and a bad thing, because the bad thing is I had a question, I couldn't stop. I just kept on digging and digging. How do I know I'm real? Maybe I'm not real. Maybe I'm just faking them. The craziest of questions all day. I ended up being in my room for 3 months straight. I didn't leave my room almost for 3 months. I was learning Torah up to 15 hours a day straight, and crying the other 7. I didn't sleep. I wasn't sleeping. I was sleeping once every 3 days. It was incredible. And I actually missed that, because it was one of the best times of my life, because I was so attached to Hashem. I was dreaming. I'm telling you the honest truth, and people know this. I had dreams, and the future was exactly how my dreams were. Craziness. I was so attached to Hashem at that point, for real. Because it's either you're attached to Hashem, all I was looking for was the truth. But I had such anxiety, and I kept on digging and digging and digging. And I was talking to Rabbanim, and they didn't have the answer. The biggest Mukubalim didn't have the answer. I want to tell you something. I started looking at my questions, and my questions were much crazier than that. The major questions is nothing. That's a joke compared to other things. I don't want to give people ideas. All anxiety, you have no idea the deepest Kabbalistic aspects that people go crazy from. These were my questions. I'm freaking out. How do I do this? What do I do? I'm crying for hours. I'm talking about, I had tears. I was screaming to Hashem, screaming to my grandparents up in Shemayim. I was doing everything. I was shaking like a leaf day and night. Nobody was able to calm me down. I needed to know that there was a God. I wanted 100%. God, I know that you're here with me. I don't want just Emunah. And I was going crazy. I was learning every sefer, and I'm talking about, all of a sudden it led me to Kabbalah. About a year ago, it led me all this to Kabbalah, because really Kabbalah is the answers to everything. And that was the first time I really started getting into Kabbalah. I was spending 10, 15 hours a day studying Kabbalah. And not these jokes, these people give sermons. I'm talking about the deepest of svarim in Kabbalah. And everything I understood. It was like a gift. I didn't understand how I knew this. I was used to Shas, Chassidus. I open up all these crazy ideas of how the world is created, all these things that we speak in the shiur, that's nothing. I can't speak about certain things even. I'm not allowed to. Most of the things that I learn in Kabbalah, I'm not allowed to speak about it. I speak about the things that are on the surface. Things that I couldn't believe I understood. Hashem gave me a gift. How did I understand all these things? I realized all these deep questions I can't speak about that I had were all the questions of all the Mekubalim over the years. And all the answers that I kept on giving myself were all the answers of them. All of a sudden I started learning Kabbalah deep. And all of a sudden I started listening to Mekubalim. I'm like, I mamish felt like they have no idea what they're talking about. It's the weirdest thing. Who am I? I'm 24 years old. I told you my life. Okay, so you know Shabbat. I'm listening to Kabbalistic shiurim. Like, no idea what they're talking about in Kabbalah. I started learning Kabbalah all day and night. I finished svarim after svarim after svarim after svarim. I slept the svarim that the minute I wake up, I should open the sefer. I was having, even then I was just tremendous anxiety. People were like, what do we do with you? They had no idea. People gave up. People had no idea how to deal with me. I was having severe anxiety to the extent that I told you I was throwing up daily, 5 times a day, because everything I ate I couldn't hold in because I was just shaking. All of a sudden, I started learning Kabbalah and learning about my neshama and learning deeper and deeper about my neshama. And the things that I learned, they're not in Kabbalah's form. I'm talking about things that you have to know all the Kabbalah to first understand. And Hashem was sending me all this, not because I was learning this form. Like I said, these were my questions. But some of the questions I asked people, and they're like, that's not a question. I was asking, why does an animal walk like this and we're straight up? They're not a question. I saw in Kabbalah, the biggest Kabbalah, asked this question. And there's a huge answer. You know why we stand up? Because we have 5 chalakim in the neshama. We have, only an animal has 2, 3 are with us and 2 aren't. But we have 1 extra. Where is it in the head? The neshama, what does it do? It brings everything to its source. The neshama is over here. Automatically, I stand up. The animal doesn't have that. And I realized that I'm understanding the world. I'm understanding things. I'm understanding why people are shaped. Why is there... I was asking the craziest of questions. People ask, there's an anxiety in the world that people have. How do I know I'm not a girl? People, you know what a person answered me? Look down there. I'm sorry to say about it. I said, you don't understand. That's not my question. He doesn't say, I'm looking. And then I started learning about Kabbalah. What is a male? What is a female? What is all this sphere? And everything was coming together on the deepest of levels. A couple of months ago, I came to yeshiva one day and I started davening to Hashem. I said, Hashem, there's nobody in yeshiva here that I could talk to. Nobody has a clue what I'm talking about. These guys, most of them are struggling to learn Gemara. They're holy Jews, don't get me wrong, but how am I going to talk to them about these deepest Kabbalistic aspects? I'm just being real with myself. I need help. I love the guys in yeshiva. They're all holier than me, all of them. But when it comes to something, if they don't know it, they can't help me. So all of a sudden, a friend comes over to me and says, I'm going to take you, start talking to my friend about tzaddikim. He says, you know what, I want to take you to a tzaddik today. He didn't even know shachas. The same day that I was davening my brains out. He takes me to Meir Shar, a tiny little alley, knocks on the door. Person invites me in. I find out his father was one of the most famous Mekubalim that many people, but I don't want to say because I don't want to reveal who he is. The point is, tremendous Mekubal, Ruach HaKodesh, you name it. First thing I come in, he says, sits down, he says, start telling me your Torah. Your Torah, he says. I started telling him everything that was on my mind about all the deepest questions, what's after, and also a half a year I struggled with, what's the tachas of life? What's the pleasure of Olam Haba? I was all day thinking about Olam Haba. What is Olam Haba? I went through every sefer, but it was the anxiety, because what's anxiety? That you can't let go of the thing until you have it under control. So every single question I went through, I had to open 50,000 books, research everything, and besides that, cry hours of Espartas Tasha that he should give me the koach to understand this. It was not pleasant. Can you imagine 6 months straight? Every time you see a roof or every time you see a car, all day I was thinking maybe I should walk into this car because the anxiety, it's the last thing you want to do. Chas v'shalom, I never wanted to do. I know that it's a Rebbeinu Shalom, but the anxiety makes it But maybe you want to. That's the whole point of anxiety. But you can't live. You remember me. I'm not saying we remember how it was. They couldn't. I wasn't human. I was emaciated. I didn't eat for a half a year. I was eating like a tzaddik, ki'ilu, but I was emaciated. I didn't. People were like, I was a ghost. I sat and learned Yom V'Layla. In 2 years, I'm telling you, in a year of Kabbalah, I learned more than Mukabbalah in 70 years. How do I know this? Because I've heard a real Mukabbalah tell me this. Otherwise, I wouldn't say it. This is all for a reason why I'm saying this. Otherwise, I'm not coming to say my life story because who's interested? But the idea is interesting because many people have this, and I want to show where you could end up. I come in, he starts telling me, tell your Torah. I start throwing Torah, throwing. He's sitting there like this. He was like astonished, like a kid my age. We're not talking about Shas, we're not throwing Kabbalistic aspects, and he's sitting there and he's a real Makubal. And he tells me, he says, what's your name? So this I love, by the way, because there was a riot. He said, what's your name? I said, my name is Yitzchak Meir. He says, in Yiddish, Yitzchak Meir, they don't call me Yitzchak Meir, only in Israel, Yitzchak, but really my name is Itcha Meir. For Yitzchak Meir was the first Gerar Rebbe who lived 250 years ago. They used to call him Itcha Meir. Itcha Meir, you know what he told me? He said, you know what Itcha Meir is? And he said, it's a fact. And who's one of the biggest Mekubalim in the world? Itcha Meir Morgenstern, right? Itcha Meir Morgenstern. He told me, he said that Itcha Meir's, he said, what's their idea of life? He said, the name Itcha Meir is Aleph Mem. What's Aleph Mem? Gamach, Rashi Tevis. Aleph is Or, and Mem is Makifim. He said all the Itcha Meirs, or many of them, they become the biggest in Mukabalim and all that, but they have tremendous anxieties. Why? And then we'll get to why. Why am I saying all this? Again, it may come off haughty, but Hashem knows it's not, God forbid. I'm doing this because I know so many people suffer, and I suffer through this, and I still do sometimes, but rarely, because, like we'll get to. And he said, your name is Aris Makifim, and Aris Makifim we know is, when Hashem created the world, there's certain intelligence that you could understand, and then there's a barrier, and you have to keep on breaking the barrier to get to a higher level and higher level of godliness, understand. He said that's what Hashem wants from you all day, every day of your life. Some people, Hashem just wants them to daven once a day. Hashem wants you, one of the hardest jobs, to just sit and cry over things, and I could understand. I'm like, okay, but like somebody would have gaiva. I was sitting there crying. I'm like, I don't want this. When you're in it, you don't want this. I don't care if I become the biggest Makobel in the world. Who wants to live a life? I was looking at everybody walking around smiling in the world. I didn't smile for a year and a half straight. I couldn't smile. I was dark. I saw blackness all day. I saw no reason for anything. Finally, a couple of months ago, so that's what he told me. Then he started telling me you have to start learning Kabbalah in Lefi Seder. We started learning Kabbalah. We learned together. And all of a sudden, I started. I don't want to publicize it, but whatever. I started writing now. I'm writing Baruch Hashem. I'm writing. Bezat Hashem, I want to put a sefer on all on the Sfarim of the Rizal, but deep Kabbalistic concepts. Bezat Hashem, Hashem should give me koach and all of us. Amen. But the point is, I still didn't understand how do I deal with this? How do I deal with this? I'm telling you. Again, I'm only saying this, you have no idea the emotional torture. I begged Hashem, take me. I davened for a half year that Hashem should take me because I can't deal with this anymore. I don't want to live. What's the point of living if it's so terrible? It's so terrible. And then all of a sudden, when I started learning Kabbalah, feast, everything, real secrets, I'm not even kidding, deep insights just started coming even deeper. And the wisdom that started coming into me is there's no pleasure in the world like one secret of understanding the creation of the world, and one secret to understanding what the Rizal means. You could be with 1,000 women, 1,000,000 women, you could party all day, drink your brains out, you could shoot heroin all day. It's a joke. And we're not even talking about Olam Haba, which is connection with Hashem, but understanding even the Chokhmah of Hashem, the wisdom of Hashem. One of the tzaddikim said, how do you get a kid off drugs? You got to give him something better. That's why I gave a shiur the other day. The highest of the neshamas are on drugs. Why? Because they're not getting the higher over here, so they go to the klipa. But what's bigger than anything? Ein Sof, the bria, the wisdom of Hashem, but the secrets of Hashem. And I write. I don't tell anybody. It's not the point. But I'm talking about legit things that, and I find later that other Mekubalim wrote similar things, and I go over and go. What's interesting is like this. I want to bring two quotes that are very, very important to what I'm saying. I saved them on my computer, and I like to quote. One is from one of the holiest Jews. No, okay, not one of the holiest Jews, but one of the most intelligent Jews that ever lived in the planet of Earth, and his name was Harav Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein, I one time saw this quote and I had to save it because it was just incredible. Because it really spoke to me and it speaks to a lot of us. He said, Albert Einstein, I quote, "It's not that I'm so smart. It's just that I stay with problems longer." Genius. What he's saying in 3 lines is what I just told you in probably about 40 minutes, whatever it is. And this is what Rav Nachman says. Albert Einstein was the biggest Breslover, in my opinion. What does Rav Nachman say? When somebody wants to come close to Hashem, in Torah Mem Ches Chilik Beis, he has to go through the most difficult trials. And he said, no tzaddik amiti became tzaddik amiti unless he went through this. So if you know a tzaddik that didn't go through anything in life, chances are he's full of it. Because Rav Nachman says, I'm just reading the words Rav Nachman says, V'chot tzaddik amiti went through this. It's the teva. He says teva, Lashon, it's the nature of the land. Albert Einstein is teaching us over here, basically, Rav Nachman, that the more you have anxiety, because we're talking about what's anxiety. Anxiety is the same thing. The problem just sits there and festers and festers. But if you channel it, like I said in the other share, if you channel it, let's say Torah, to a deep idea, the more the problem stays by you, the more you deal with it, the more you figure it out. Imagine somebody who doesn't have anxiety. Talking to people of anxiety, and they know exactly what I'm talking about. They dig and dig and dig. Let's say somebody doesn't have anxiety. So after he understands a little bit, he feels good, and he goes on. Somebody's anxiety, no, it's deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's when you start digging and digging and digging, and that's how you come to the secrets of things. So Albert Einstein's saying, forget about my smartness. You can have geniuses that don't know a thing about it. It's because the issue just stayed at large always. And after a while, he just built on it and built on it and built on it. And we know how it is in Judaism. Once you build on one thing, you end up bringing from everywhere. So it's not like you're just learning one thing. You end up learning everything because Judaism is one thing. It's one Torah. What's interesting is, I want to bring another quote from a philosopher. This is Albert Einstein. I'd like to bring a quote from a philosopher. I'm just uploading it. I actually saw this quote yesterday. And I was like, boom, min hashamayim, hashgacha. This philosopher's name was Soren Kierkegaard. He was from Denmark. He was Danish. He was from Denmark. He says, what's the concept of anxiety? Quote, a simple... Oh, I'm sorry. No, not this one. I apologize. Hold on. It's later down. Hold on 1 second. Okay. This is it. He says, quote, to venture causes anxiety, but not to venture is to lose oneself. It's huge, right? Then he says, and to venture in the highest is precisely to be conscious of oneself. Now, what does that mean? He's saying something genius. He's saying that reality, he's saying the concept of life in 3 sentences. Life is, we know, especially as Jews and people who want to get close to Hashem in the Torah, is always getting to know God higher and higher. If you don't try to always figure out more about the world and about your purpose and getting close to Hashem and why there's suffering and all these things, then what's going to happen? You'll stay in the same place, which, to be honest, 99% of the world is like that. And you know what also, to be honest, I don't want to talk bad, 99% of the religious people are like that also. 99% of religious people don't know the first thing about God and don't know the first thing about the world. Usually, Baal Teshuvas who become hardcore Baal Teshuvas know a lot more than the people who grow up because of all their questions. These religious kids, what does the father say? Can't ask these questions. Emunah. This one, Gemara, just Gemara all day. Okay, that's going to help a kid. The point of life is to venture into areas that are scary and try to learn new things. Anxiety is a form of afraid of digging deeper because you're afraid of the consequence. But when you take your anxiety, you learn more, right? If you don't, then it's pointless because you don't know who yourself is. How do you learn about yourself unless you venture into other places and start learning about yourself? The highest thing is, though, the next step, which is the highest, which I feel that this is what I was going through, it was severe anxiety, but severe anxiety brings you to the highest of places because you don't stop digging. And you can't stop because even though you want to stop, the anxiety makes it that you can't stop. These two quotes struck me very, very, very like perfect for this sermon, as you would say. Now, this is the most amazing part. There's a big Mekubal in Eretz Yisrael, his name is Rav Ginsburg, right? Yitzchak Ginsburg is brilliant, a brilliant man. When you look through his Torahs, he's brilliant. He knows Kabbalah on his fingertips, and he's bucking Chassidus and everything. I saw a mimer from him. I saw an essay that he wrote, and I came across it, and the first thing I saw which struck me, I was like, wow. He said, God, Hashem, gives the secrets of Kabbalah only to the anxiety, only to the one who has anxiety. And he brought places in Chazal that only people who had anxiety and fought, they're the ones who became the biggest and the smart and they knew the most. Now he's probably talking about himself because he is that big, so he probably... Why? He explains like this, the logic of it. He says in Torah, there's two concepts of Torah. There's the outer layer, the garment of the Torah, which is the simple meaning of the Torah. And then he says there's the inner, the garment, right? Like we said, it's the soul of the Torah. It says, right, just like a human body. The body is just the outer garment. It's the garment on the what? The real thing. The pshat, of course, you have to know, because the pshat brings you, meaning, how do you know who a person is? By his body. I know you're you because you look this way. And then that I can learn who your neshama is because I see this is Yosef, or this is you, and this is you, and this is you. The Torah, in order to get into the Torah, you have to go through the first door. He says most people, 99% of the world, like anything, if they don't have anxiety, and they don't have fear of what they're learning, and it doesn't make them crazy, and they don't have panic attacks, so after the first layer, they move on. He says, but the ones who all day have anxiety, they can't sleep, and they can't until they figure it out, and they keep on digging deeper and deeper. And when it comes to Torah, they end up digging so deep that they touch the Kabbalah and deeper, and they start tasting, as you would say, the honey of the Torah. You can't imagine the wisdom. You can't imagine. You taste something of Kabbalah and really understand it. There's just... I'm also understanding a Gemara, because also in Gemara there's the Kabbalah of the Gemara, meaning it's the depth that people, but it's not the point. The point is, when you understand the deep concept of the Bria, of the world, the creation of who you are, and there's nothing greater in the world. That's where Ginsburg says, and when I saw that gave me mamish the most gratification, the most wow. I said, you have a Mekubal that's telling you to your face that because you have this severe anxiety, you have the chance to become one of the great ones. So it used to be that I was scared of it, but then when I started learning and getting deeper, and then real secrets of Torah and everything, and I realized I just go deeper and deeper. How happy can I be? There's no end to the happiness. But when somebody doesn't work, there are a lot of people who have anxiety and they throw their hands up. And some of them, God forbid, go to drugs. Some of them go to nightclubs. Some of them become sex addicts, drug addicts, you name it. Some people become workaholics. What does that get you? But if somebody takes it, like I said in the last year, and people didn't understand what I meant, this is what I meant by channeling it for Torah, then you can open up the doors to Torah, and you'll never be satisfied with what you have. You'll be happy, but I meant in a good way, you won't be satisfied. You just want to go deeper and deeper because Torah is endless. I'm telling you all that whoever has severe anxiety, the 4 million, I'm just giving a statistic, and everybody knows themselves, they can grow to such heights. My friends know, I'm not playing. My friends know. I'm talking about I'm everywhere in Kabbalah, and it's not because Hashem gave me this gift. Use it in the proper way. Don't throw your lives away because of panic and anxiety and OCD. You can end up because of the anxiety, you can know kiss Arizal back and forth. You can know Shemus of Hashem. You can know what people, you could end up having, you could come to Ruach HaKodesh to these things. Not even kidding. So what are you going to throw it away because it's uncomfortable? So it's uncomfortable. I went through 2 years, which I thought, and I never thought I'd get out of it because that's part of the anxiety. And one of the anxieties is that I'll never get out of it. And you sit and you throw up day after day, and it's wonderful. It's the worst thing ever. It's worse than anything. The emotional grief, everything scares you. I remember I saw children, they scared me. Everything was scaring me. Everything. The wind, anything in the world. You have no idea. I was a walking corpse. I was a corpse. But I fought it, and I cried, and I learned all day. And it brought me to a place where, to be honest, last year I gave on the Kutim Run in the morning, I spent 20 minutes preparing it. That's it. 20 minutes I prepared that whole shiur. Because if you use what Hashem gives you, and like Rav Ginsburg says, the ones that Hashem gives the secrets to are the ones that have anxiety. And I don't mean anxiety like that. I explained in the beginning which type of anxiety. You heard the story a little bit. It's obviously, I didn't even go into a percent of really what I went through, but I gave a little bit of a picture. Starting from 8 years old, even earlier, you become great. You become great. Moms become great. Now, how do I not speak about this when I know so many people are suffering from this? How do I say to myself that it's personal, that I had suicide thoughts for a half a year? I know it was all for the good. Somebody else, oh, my mother is going to find out, and this one's going to find out that one. Life, that's what you're worried about anybody besides Hashem? Why do you think Hashem put you in this place? Hashem knows that you're the one who can carry along 50 other people, 100 other people. Every other person has his issue, and this one had an issue with this. I'm speaking about anxiety because this is what it is. And anxiety is something that it's very difficult, and it's more difficult than most things because it's emotional. And most people think that they have anxiety. They don't, like I said, because people really have it. They can tell another person who has it in a second. But you can come to such heights. I keep on saying it because you can't imagine. You can't imagine the things you can reach using this as a tool, like I said last year. And the second point that I was scared of, if I sounded haughty, too bad. I know that I'm not being. And if I sound, then I have no other way to put it. This is the only way. When somebody knows that his chesron is brought him to milas, so how does he not speak it to encourage other people to get to the same place? Am I wrong? What, not to speak chas v'shalom because somebody's going to say, oh, he's being haughty about Kabbalah. You have to understand to use, like Rav Arush says, you have to use the things that Hashem gave you to help other people. This is a gift that Hashem gave me. I'm going to use it to help other people. I can't play music for the life of myself. For the life of mine. I can't sing. I can't help somebody play music or sing. I can't do many things. I'm terrible at math. I'm just saying examples. I can't do these things to help somebody. I don't know, maybe everything, any single other thing. This is something that I know that this thing took me to places in depth and wisdom of godliness that I'm telling you, I spoke to Rabbanim, people 50 to 70 years didn't have it touched. Rav Arush told me this himself. Rav Arush doesn't lie, right? We know that Rav Arush sees everything. Rav Arush said people, the whole lives don't come through this. What you've gone through in 2 years and got through. You have all the opportunity in your hands. And this year, obviously, each person can take it to his situation. But I'm talking to people because personally, I cry from this because I know the suffering that people go through. Because it reminds you of your own, and it reminds you of how you felt, and how do you now feel terrible when somebody else is going through it. When your family member, or your best friend, or this, or that. It's terrible. It's terrible. I really hope that people will take this video and understand that it was all for L'Shem Shamayim, and all for the shame that everybody should really understand that everything that they have really is all for the best, really for the best. It's in your hands though. And I really, anybody wants to speak to me anytime. I gave my number, I'll give my number again on the camera. Anybody wants to call me if they have issues with this. I don't have Facebook, I apologize. Don't have Twitter, don't have Instagram, don't have, what's the other ones? What's the new stuff they have out there? Twitter, every week there's something else. Birds or lions, I don't know. Every week some other app they come out. I don't have any of that. You can call my phone, 058-627-4240. And I'd love to help because I feel you guys. And I feel that anybody who has questions, Mezrat Hashem, there's a chance for everybody. Don't think not. You just got to start. It's miserable in the beginning, but it'll come out. You'll be an animal, a lion, strong as a bull, strong as a lion in everything, every aspect of life. You're not scared of anything, nothing. Bezrat Hashem, we should all be zoiche, Bezrat Hashem, to continue holding on strong with our Emunah, because that's really what everything, really, you need Emunah for everything. No matter how much everything, Kabbalah, everything, you need Emunah. And this will give you Emunah by fighting, because you see how Hashem always is, you're finding Hashem everywhere. We should all be zoiche to find Hashem always, and it's okay for us to understand also it's okay that we get sad. It's okay. Hashem made this world with suffering. We know why. We speak about it because He knew that it's for the best. We don't understand that, but we know why, ki'ilu. And we just have to push on. And like the Rebbe says, the main thing, to hold each other. To hold each other. Together. Biyachad. Toda rabba.